He is. Okay, so we are ready for our book club kickback with Tamron Hall. And what I'm going to do, she had logged on, but I don't see her. She might be switching devices because now I don't see her. But I am going to bring on all the book club people that have logged on, and we're going to have a book club roll call, so to speak, so we know which clubs are represented. I have the ones that signed up, but sometimes some of the ones that signed up don't actually end up showing up. So we want to do that. And then let me see who else I have on here. See if I have anybody else that's let's see, I think I have everybody. Just that way. And Tamron's back in the waiting area, so we're going to admit her as well, so we can get started with our conversation about As the Wicked Watch. And I have a copy of the book here. And we're going to be giving away 3 autographed copies of the book at the end of the discussion. And our giveaways are always based on trivia questions. So whoever can answer the trivia questions will get their copy of the book. So I'm trying to see. I don't see. Let me see. Oh, there's Tamron. When there's so many people, sometimes it's hard to see. So
there she is. She's taking a picture of the screen.
She's taking a picture of the screen. So Tamron, I don't know if you don't have your mic on yet, but what I want to do is I want to do a roll call of the book clubs before we get started, just so we know which clubs are represented. And then we'll get started right away. So I'm going to call the clubs that signed up, and if you're here, say present or do something. Or wave, do the hand wave or say present. So Black Pearl's Keeping It Real from Dallas. Okay.
Here.
Okay. Buy the Book from New Haven, Connecticut. Anybody from Buy the Book?
I don't know. Let me see if she's on the other page. Buy the Book
from New Haven, Connecticut. Okay, Good City Book Club. I know we have 2 people on here, Kay and Brenda. And Joyce. Okay. The Fallbrook Church Book Club. I see Bonnie is on here for that. The group is from the Quad Cities, Illinois and Iowa. Anybody from
yes
the group? Yes, okay. Here. Hush Harbor Literary Club online. Yeah. Okay, there you go. Imani Literary Group from Metro Atlanta.
We're here.
We're here. Okay. Wonderful. Ladies of Color Turning Pages from Los Angeles.
Present.
Okay. I don't know how this is pronounced. Lily Breve Book Club from East Point, Georgia. No. Let's see. Prominent Women of Color Book Club.
We're here.
Okay. We're here. Sisters of the Word from Rosharon, Texas. Sisters and Friends Book Club from Chicago.
Right here.
Okay. Sister Friends Book Club, Dearborn, Michigan. Sister Sip and Tea Literary Group from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think I have 2 more. Soul Passages Book Club from New Haven, Connecticut. I don't see anybody. And the last one is the Zora Neale Hurston Book Club from Houston. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this is our second book of Kickback, and we do these once a quarter. And when we do them, we have the author on with us, and we are excited to have Tamron Hall. with her first novel. Welcome, Tamron, to Black Authors Matter TV's Book Club Kickback.
Thank you, Gwen. It's so good to see you. Hi, Rhonda. So good to see everyone from around the country. Thank you for having me.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
being here.
Of
Well,
course.
but we asked everybody to read the book before the conversation, and we'll let everybody ask questions. I think first it might be good for you to take about 5 minutes and just give the impetus behind the book and let us know what led you to write it and the experience of writing a novel.
Well, it was an interesting experience for many reasons. One of which that I didn't think of until much later. I was allowed to step out of my comfort zone. I'm now 51 and I've been doing TV since I was 18. And this was something that really forced me out of the comfort zone of what I do every day, the talk show, or whether I was on TV, Today Show, MSNBC. This was very different for me. I, as a reporter, would go out on a scene for, I'm gonna take my earrings off, I think, because they're clanking against my ear pod. But I would go out on a scene for 12, 14 hours, and your news story would be a minute 15. And now I had as much time as I wanted to develop this character, to develop this story. Full disclosure, which I've shared with Gwen before and Rhonda, the case itself was inspired by two stories I covered in 1997. I was in Dallas, Fort Worth as a reporter, and I covered a story about a young missing white girl who was later found killed. A few months later, I moved to Chicago, big job in Chicago. Finally, I'd made it to the town that makes newscasters. And soon after arriving, I was covering the death of another child, 11, who happened to be African American, and watching the difference in the way those stories were covered, but also living with the feelings and the heartache as a reporter that I felt firsthand, but was never able to say. I remember in Chicago, the anchor was Robin Robinson, and I would say, "Back to you, Robin," in front of a field where this child's body was a few hours prior, and having to compartmentalize that. So I grew up reading Nancy Drew. I had this career that I'd experienced firsthand, and I merged these two to form Jordan Manning. I sold the book before the pandemic and a year and a half before the Gabby Petito debate that was happening regarding why missing Black and brown children were never the lead story, which was the subject matter of our book, or my book. And so all of these things were layered, but I believe, as I've always believed, that this was the book that I was meant to write at this time. And this character, as I learned from publishers when I was pitching it, according to the major publishing houses, didn't exist. A Black woman who was solving the crime. We've been the victims of the crime. We've been witnesses to the crime, but a reporter who was a Black woman solving the hero, dare I say, had not existed in popular print. And so all of these things came together to where we are, which is an awesome night with all of you. I'm pretty nervous about your questions, I can't lie, but I'm excited to hear them and hear your feedback. I'm 8 chapters in now to the second book in this series. I grew up with Nancy Drew. Thank you. I grew up with Nancy Drew series under my bed. And I hope one day my son, who's 2.5 years old, someone will say to him, "I grew up with your mom's series under my bed," just like she did with Nancy Drew. But Nancy Drew is brown now and she takes no shit. So there you go. So that's what I have.
Yes.
Well, I have a question, so I'm going to take personal privilege
Yes,
and ask the first question, and that is, are you Jordan Manning?
I am, but I'm not, in the sense of, obviously 30 years of reporting gave me the template, the background that's needed, that opening scene where she's out at, getting ready for the live shot and, barely having had anything but a granola bar to eat and the heels getting stuck in the cement. I have flown out of my shoes a couple of times, thinking that I had to look apart and I'm out covering the story. And I've also felt that same anxiety and worry and fear and responsibility as a journalist. But the difference, there are many differences, but one that stands front of mind is Jordan is living in a world that I can create as a writer. In the real world I lived in, if I'd spoken up the way she did, you wouldn't be talking to Tamron Hall. I would have been labeled difficult. Well, I've already been labeled that, let's be honest. And that was not being difficult. That was just speaking up for myself. And if I had early on in my career been bold enough to be in a newsroom to do what she did in that scene, where she's saying what's going on here, you would never know me. And so she has, I would have suffered the weight of the consequence of speaking up like that, and I have. She doesn't have that same burden because she is being written by a Black woman who can say, you rise above firing. You're bigger than the adversary because what you do represent is truth. I actually got fired and was lucky enough to have you all in the TAM fam put me back on air. But without that, I would not have been here. So yeah, no, she is me, but I wish I had the ability to speak up in the way that she has at such a young age. She's in her 30s. I had my speak up moment in this business probably in my late 40s.
Wow. That's interesting to me. I guess the older we get, because I know at one time we thought 30, someone in their 30s was older and they had it together and they were fearless. And I guess now that we're older and we're looking back, we see that 30-year-olds are still young in certain ways. Do you feel like Jordan was just maybe idealistic in some ways?
I think she was idealistic in many ways. Listen, going into this second series, she does start to face bigger consequences. Not necessarily getting fired on a national broadcast, but she starts to face the real consequences that women face, that women of color face. Because although this world is one that we've created for her, it's still one that I want to be steeped in reality. You know, Jordan Manning, without a doubt, is still a woman. She's without a doubt a Black woman. She doesn't have legacy money. She doesn't have a backup plan. She is her backup plan. And so that is pulled from me in many ways. I was raised by a single mom who had me at 19. She was her backup plan. And fast forward many years later, even though I was a college graduate, even though I had achieved dreams that my mom had for me, at the end of the day, I was my backup plan. And so Jordan will experience that as well. When you are from a loving family, but no one's put a trust fund dollar. So to be able to walk out of a newsroom and say, I'm out, is not an option. And also she's competitive. She doesn't want to give in to it, right? Because we as Black women, many times you can walk out and you have to ask yourself as you're walking out of the door, who am I hurting, them or me? You know, and so she has that, who am I hurting by walking out of this newsroom moment? And she is also going to grapple more with what she wants to be. Does she want to be a reporter, or does she want to delve more into this investigative lane? Because you can't do both.
Well, also, it seemed like in the book, which also happens with professional Black women in general, she didn't really have a mentor.
No,
really, at the network.
And and that happens because there's that one-for-one mentality. I've shared with you, Gwen, and I think Rhonda, you were present as well. Multiple times I replaced the same Black woman. I replaced this woman in Dallas, and then I replaced her in Chicago.
The actual literal same Black woman?
The literal same human being.
Wow.
And she got out of the business. She got out of the business. And I wasn't following her, but it was at such a point where once you get to Dallas, right, you're in market 14, 10, 10, 7 or 10. So it's 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Think about how many Black women you've seen on that spectrum. And, you have the Diane Burns of the world, and you have a few who get to the national network level, but I'm often struck by the fact that even I didn't know I was the first Black woman to host the Today Show in its 62-year history of the Today Show. that's remarkable to me. And I honestly didn't even occur to me. I was happy to have the job. I was like, oh my God, my Today Show. I was just thinking, I'm on the Today Show. And then someone called me and said, you do know you're the first Black woman to ever host the Today Show. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And so with Jordan, we see a lot of that because in reality, even though she's in her 30s, even though we're looking from the lens of 2021, other than Wendy Williams on daytime TV, I am the only single host person who executive produce, create, and host their show. It's me and Wendy. Everyone else is part of an ensemble cast. Now think about how many single hosted white female, white male, even Black male shows have been out since Oprah Winfrey, who was the greatest to do it. You would think because TV likes to copy, yet they've not copied that model.
That's true. Well, all the book club members, you all are free to jump in with questions at any time.
Not hard ones. I'm kidding. Go anything you want.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The title, As the Wicked Watch.
Mm-hmm. The title came to me. So as I said, I shared, I sold the book prior to the pandemic, and then I started to write it. So the March 13th, I believe, was the last day of our show in studio. Angela Bassett was on the show. And I remember vividly because our guest was a little girl who'd gone viral because someone called her ugly. And she was a Black girl. And it was the story, everyone was just so sad because someone had called her at the school unattractive and ugly. And so we called Angela and I said, can you surprise her? You're the queen of Zamunda. If you tell her she's beautiful, everybody gonna believe she's beautiful, she'll believe it herself. And so she's like, well, first of all, it's Wakanda. I remember her saying, I was like, okay, Wakanda, Zamunda, you're the queen, and we need the Black queen to come on and tell her that she's beautiful. And so Angela came on and we had a show, and then we shut down. So we started doing the show from my home, and then started to write the story. And to answer you, Debbie, directly, I was in the middle of the night one night and I thought about how many evil people have watched me on TV. And I thought about specifically a story in Texas where there was a man who he was barricaded in a trailer park, in a trailer home in a trailer park in Texas, in rural Texas. And he killed someone and they were fearful he was going to kill himself. And the police said to me, you can't report because we think he's watching. And if he sees your camera, he'll know where we are because they'd surrounded the perimeter. They were going to kill him. And because he'd killed somebody. And I started to think about, wow, the wicked watch, right? He'd killed, so he was watching. And how many times we hear of serial killers who watch the news or would come back to the crime scene, as you saw in that vigil, when Jordan is looking around, wondering if the person is in that group of people. And so it was born from the idea that every day I hope good people are watching, but I understand wicked are watching.
Yes. That's deep and very true, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So where'd the name Jordan Manning come from? Was that just...
Wow, so that was... Yeah, well, Jordan lives in Chicago. At the time I lived in Chicago, the three most powerful Black people in probably the world lived there. Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and someone we didn't know yet named Barack Obama, all on the south side of Chicago. And so I couldn't name her Barack Manning, it's a little too obvious. Oprah Manning would sound a little crazy. And so I said, Jordan, Michael Jordan, and who is the opposite of him? Well, the Manning brothers, football players, white male.
Okay.
And so Jordan Manning was the name that was born. I thought I liked it because I've always wanted to be named Tony, because I love names where you can't tell gender. I think it sounds like, hi, I'm Tony, And so I thought that Jordan was non-descriptive. I also thought it would make you curious, like, you meet someone named Jordan. You think, first of all, who named you Jordan? Who they named you after? How old are you? It sparks a curiosity, I felt. And so that's where Jordan's name came from.
Okay.
Well, I have a comment.
Okay.
My name
Okay.
is Dondi, and it's a gender
Hi,
neutral
Dondi.
name. And I have a
Yeah.
daughter, Jordan, which
I
is
love
gender
it.
neutral, like you just said.
Oh,
But you mentioned that you sold the book before you
Mhm.
actually wrote it. And you wrote the book over the pandemic, which
Mhm.
made me think about Zora Neale Hurston and how she wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God in 7 weeks. How
Mhm.
long did it take you to write your book?
It took me longer than 7 weeks, but I can tell you that it was, and for a long time, Dondi, I was embarrassed to admit it was the writing process, or the story was easier than I'd ever imagined. It poured, they say Michael Jackson wrote Billie Jean on his sheets. He woke up in his sheet and he wrote the lyrics. That's allegedly the rumor. It's no secret I was very close to Prince, and I watched him through his creative process of many things, and he would write songs and sing these songs in the middle of the night that never got published, just the lyrics of songs. I woke up like that many, many times, where it was just like, this is it. Because I didn't know that, oh, no, I do recognize that we have weapons, right? What do you have people call it your gift. Some people call it your weapon in life, whatever it is,
word.
exactly. And so for me, I couldn't write a memoir. I'm not ready to tell my whole story. I have a very complicated relationship with my biological father that I'm not ready to delve into with people, because I don't even delve into it myself. So I knew my memoir would have to include that. I'm working on a children's book for sure, but this genre and this type of character I was drawn to in creating. So it really went fast. The challenge was, I had a 2-year-old and I'm 100,000 years old, and then he was 1. So there I am, Methuselah, with a 1-year-old. And so I'm trying to juggle that. And well, it's okay. And I was also trying to figure out, I'm in New York City, this is my home right now. This is my dining room. And I'm at home in New York City trying to get groceries, so the beginning of the book, I will admit, was a little bit of a struggle, because I was present, but I was also surviving like everybody else. I was trying to put the show on. My son had just gone from formula to whole milk. Full disclosure, I thought they drank formula until there was 2 or 3. I did not know you stopped formula at 1. I'm thinking of all the kids I saw with baby bottles. I'm like, what are they drinking? My cousin had a bottle till he was 4. I'm like, what was he drinking in that bottle then? So I didn't even know. So literally the world shut down, and I'm like, wait, what? They don't drink the formula no more? What do you mean they drink whole milk? And we can't get whole milk delivered. What? And so I was a little dealing with that, but I as I reread the book, I see as my spirit started to loosen, I started to loosen up as well. So it's been fun to explore that. But it wasn't 7 weeks, but it was not as hard, because it was much of it, from the first question that Gwen asked, was inspired by my life, but not my exact life.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And somebody asked that question about sharing the journey of writing and balancing with the new baby husband and all the hats. So you answered that question.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. My mom and I'm very, very close to my mother. We talk 100,000 times a day. And so I forget, so we're in the process. My son is now, so in New York, they probably have this everywhere, when I have a kid. So you got a 2-year-old program, now he's in 3-year-old. Now we're looking at 3- and 4-year-old programs. I just went to preschool and kindergarten. I didn't know they had 2-year-old and 3-year-old programs. And so today I said to my mom, who's in Texas, I got to go and look at this school. It's for 3- and 4-year-olds. And then I'm so lucky I have the Black Authors Book Club meeting that night. And she said something. And I said, I multitask well. She said, do you? I'm like, Mom, don't you read the articles? They ask me and I answer every time. She started laughing because she sees me behind the scenes. But no, I ran in and I set up this camera. I set up the light. I put the books here. Ta-da. I ran around the corner and had sushi with my husband, bathed my son. He now can do hands, shoulders, knees, and toes coordinated. So he thinks he is Michael Jordan. And then I ran downstairs and came with you all. But like the rest of you, we juggle, we make it happen. And so the book, like anything else, my mother, as I said, was a 19-year-old single mom who worked at a cake deck. She worked at a grocery store decorating the cakes at night that you would see when you come to the grocery store that was decorated for a kid's birthday while she was going to school. So that's a lot harder than anything I have to do, and be a single mom. So it's all good.
Well, I wanted to also give you kudos on writing the character. I think you had us really feel the pain of Pamela.
Yeah.
Uh,
That was
you
important,
really
honestly.
wrote
Yeah, Gwen,
that
I
well.
thought, you're the first to really dig into that. Pamela, and I've never said this out, and I've done now 100,000 interviews, it feels like. Pamela was my dad when my sister was murdered, but no one's ever asked me. Pamela reminded me and was inspired by, so my dad passed away soon after my sister died, was murdered. And my mother, when my dad died, which around this time is when so my dad got sick right after Thanksgiving, and he died right after New Year's. And so at the time, my mother, like many people, first she thought the doctors had not properly cared for him, and we have had that very real discussion as people of color of whether or not, and we do know that we don't get the proper medical coverage, but he's also a veteran. And I remember my mom taking him to the VA hospital and being very upset with there's the care at the VA hospital. And then he passed away. And my mother, in the first weeks, and I don't know when she ended saying it, for a long time though, my mother said he died of a broken heart. And you hear that a lot, someone died of a broken heart. And she talked a lot about believing that as a dad, you think your job is to protect your daughter, and my dad dealt with the grief and the feelings, although he never articulated it to me, but he clearly did to my mom in some capacity of not protecting my sister. So Pamela, actually, breaking news, is my dad.
Oh, okay. Well, it's very compelling. I mean, I could visualize her. I could feel her grief. It's just very well written scenes with her. And the characters, all the characters to me, you have very good character development. You didn't have too many characters. Some
well,
books
I
have so many
I was nervous.
characters.
I'm gonna tell you, Gwen, I'm prepared for you don't have to, you can tell me the gospel truth, because this was my first novel. And I am not, when I tell you my first novel in a pandemic, I am not making any excuses. And I recognize that I will grow as a writer, but I can tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed stepping out of the comfort zone. And I thoroughly enjoyed bringing suspense and a thriller to our audiences that I hope will occupy this lane that's not well traveled enough. We're, as I said, always a part of the story, but a protagonist like Jordan Manning, we don't often see, and moms like Pamela, we don't often see. So that's been for me the most rewarding and inspiring portion of this, that after the book came out, I just said, I gotta keep going, I gotta keep going, what are they gonna say? What are they gonna say? So that's been the fun of it.
Well, I would say for me
I like the
personally,
fact that you're
ahead,
saying that this is your first book and you were nervous. I want to give you kudos, because this may be your first book. You may have been nervous and everything else that you're saying, but I'm seeing 255 ratings and you have 4.5 stars already. And the book has only been out less than 2 months. I mean, that says a lot for a first-time author.
Listen, Rhonda, I still, in fact, my agent called me and said, did your mama write this review? I was like, I hate you. I was like, I can just tell you I'm humbled by it. And I don't say that in the way that someone's supposed to be scripted to say, because I have, full disclosure, I had a wine glass before this. So I'm just being honest. My inhibitions are down. I was super nervous and not afraid, but nervous, right? That nervous butterfly energy that allows you to do things out of your comfort zone. And I don't want to keep saying as a Black woman, but that's my perspective in our life, in my life, is that we are expected to armor up constantly and be strong constantly, and to step out on that vulnerable space and create something was its reward. Now, the 4.5 stars, don't get me wrong, I'm probably gonna get a tattoo like Mike Tyson on my face in a minute, but but yeah, it's just a reminder to all of us, to those of you who are contemplating writing, who have stories that you enjoy and think, well, I could do poetry, whatever it is. There are so many things that we don't tap into, and so many lanes that we have decided for whatever reason not to get in, and we should. Even if it doesn't work out exactly as planned, this book, the talk show, I'd have a stack of names taller than this of the people who told me the book, no. The talk show, no. But just stepping out of these comfort zones as creatives and as consumers of creativity, it's important.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I'm an avid reader,
Thank you.
and it's better than I thought it would be.
That's a huge compliment. No, because
Yeah.
listen, I'm like, people are like, novel. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been a reporter for 30 years. Have y'all not been watching my show? But I love the underdog mentality of it, right? Because it is something new. And once you know someone for what they do, it can sometimes be hard to imagine them as something else, which is precisely why I wanted to do the novel. And it's precisely why when someone says it's better than I thought, I don't get in my feelings like, wait a minute, I'm graduate from Temple University, I'm on the board of trustees. I love the idea that it's better than you thought, because again, it reminds us that we too have, I think, bought into lanes, right? So, because that's why it's better than you thought, because we buy into the lanes but we say we are the creators of life. Black girl magic. We do everything better, tighter, more wonderful. And yet we limit ourselves, not because we can't, but because we focus in, I believe, too often on expectations. So I wanted to do something unexpected, but also bring excellence to it as best I can. And it'll get better. And I'm going to keep trying. And it's, by book 6, you'll be like, did Tamron Hall really write that? That was way better than the first one. But I'm encouraged by that. I'm inspired by that. And I think that's the fun of a series. You start to get to know her and get better. And as I said, I'm in the second one and I feel more clear-sighted about where Jordan is going and her connection to the readers.
Yeah, well,
Tamron, I have
it
a
was more
question.
based on what I do want to just respond back to what she said, and then I'll relinquish and let everybody talk. I did what I really meant was not so much as what you do, or it really wasn't about you specifically. It was more about sometimes the publishing industry will have celebrities write books that they sell them to the public, but they really aren't very well written. So that was really, it was really more in that I've been disappointed by celebrity books.
Right. No, me too. You know what, Gwen, listen, I hold you up to the most high, because you're amazing in what you do, and I appreciate it. Again, here's another headline. I could have made a lot more money writing memoir. I could have sold a lot more books writing a memoir. People wanted me to write Today's Show, Megyn Kelly, and this and that, and all these things. And we saw books to do that. And there might be a time where I do that too. But for me, that wasn't my song. That wasn't my story. I just wanted to write this character and have all of you who are on with us and your friends and family follow her along the way and root for her, get mad at her, want to see her do more, tell her to back up, girl, you're crossing the line. Like I pictured this moment where I'm sitting, well, I thought it would be in person with readers like yourself and us talking over this character in this book and excitedly debating, what happened and what she should do next. And the second in this series, we're going to go more into her personal life, right? And what is it like for her as she keeps trying to date and she's all over the place and people asking, when are you going to have a baby and can you have it all? And now she's pulled into a case in Indiana and this victim is the person who's disappeared is a woman who happens to be white, who happens to be a mom, very different from Jordan. Will she relate to this victim in the same way she's related to Macy? So she can see herself in Macy. She can see herself in Pamela. But when it's somebody very different from you, can you pull to that emotion that requires you to be invested? And part of this case that I'm looking at now on the cover for her, a little bit was inspired by Newtown and something that happened to me. With Newtown, I was on air and I wasn't a mom at the time. And I remember everyone on air saying repeatedly, as a parent, this is your worst nightmare. As a parent, and I remember going home thinking, wait a minute. So do you believe I don't care because I'm not a mom? Like, do you think I'm at home, like sipping my tea or whatever and not even caring that children have died as a result of this massacre? And so with Jordan now, she has to have this discussion with herself, the difference in womanhood and motherhood. I've been a woman for 51 years. I've been a mom for 2, which is more my siren song, which is more of who I am. I'm going to be a woman forever, right? And so I'll be a mom now, but I've been a woman much longer. And can she relate to this person who's disappeared and her choices that she made that contributed perhaps to her disappearance?
Okay, Zebby had the question, her hand up.
Yes,
So-
Debbie, hi.
Hi again.
Hi.
My question, your second book, will you have some of the characters from the first book into the second book?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, because I know you were going to have Jordan in there, of course, but
Yeah.
like Bates and any of those.
Bates is back. Bates is her boy. Bates has got to come back.
I thought so.
The story picks up with Jordan at a wedding, not hers, with friends, because I think also going back to, again, the very first question about how much of Jordan is me in this business that I am in, as much as I love it, it can be a lonely business. And particularly in my years in Chicago, I was able to move forward in this business because of my friends. None of them did what I did. Now the disclosure about me, I don't have a lot of friends in the business, meaning my friends are in the world. Like my girlfriend, I've had the same best friend since I was 4 years old. And then I had the same friend from college. Like I have a big group of friends, but none of them do what I do. Joyanne Reed, Tiffany Cross, I have some exceptions, Angela Rye, that are my girls. But truly, the majority of my intimate circle who come here and eat dinner on the Peacock tablecloth are my friends that I've had my whole life or much of my life. So Jordan's friend circle is important to her, and we're bringing some of that texture in. And that goes back to my womanhood, motherhood point of view on this, is that I want to enrich her as a woman, much like we saw with Waiting to Exhale, for example. These beautiful, loyal friends who pull you up when Jordan falls, and she's got a big fall coming her way.
Okay. Now, Lauren Gilbert asked, how deep did you research the criminal investigation process?
So for me, that was an interesting component because in addition to doing the network stuff that I've done, I showed Deadline Crime And in January, this one January, I have a new show called Someone They Knew, cases of people who were victims of someone they knew. And so I didn't realize how much knowledge that I had amassed from talking to detectives all day long. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a forensic specialist, but I did research a lot of that. Most of the deep dive came with technology, because the year the book was writing, the year the book is set in was the first year of the iPhone. That iPhone does not do with this iPhone. So I'm like, oh, she screen grabbed. They're like, the iPhone didn't screen grab back then. I'm like, what? What about this? They're like, it did not do that. What? I'm like, how have we gotten attached to this thing? It didn't do anything back then. So adjusting technology was the biggest change. The biggest one umbrella of research that we had to do. But the work that Jordan did really came from actual cases that I'd covered, that I'd retained notes from. And I kind of merged some of that factual data. Like there was a case in Florida where a woman had gone missing for unsolved for many, many years. And it was solved through a napkin. They burned up a car, and there was for whatever reason, a lone napkin that came out of the flames. A detective went back out to look at the scene and spotted it and said, I remember her telling me, she said, I knew it was something. Pick it up, run it. Sure enough, it was the girlfriend of a guy, and they traced it all back to them. They killed. So it's those moments that I had already with me.
Brenda Younger asked, but I think she has the wrong last name on here, because I think it's April Murphy, if I'm not mistaken. The
Yeah,
character
yes.
April.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a reason why you chose to make her white?
Well, I think that, yes, a very specific reason. Unfortunately, too often I've seen stories amplified when there's been a white voice as the front face, whether it's a lawyer speaking for a Black victim sans Benjamin Crump and Johnny Cochran, most of the lawyers have been white people, right? With a case that's high profile Black, because as a victim or a suspect, you believe, well, this person's gonna talk to these people. And with Pamela and April, so first of all, April's name is and she is white, was my best friend in 10th grade, April Bishop, who convinced me, the only time I've ever smoked in my life, she convinced me to smoke a menthol cigarette. I can still feel the burning now. That was 100 years ago. So shout out April with her menthol cigarettes, but that's where the name came from. But I recognize almost, so April's kind of this character. I don't know if you saw this story this week about the Black family who went to sell their home, and they had a white family pose as the homeowners, and it appraised for $500,000 more when the appraiser thought it was a white home.
I did
Look it up. It's in
that
San Francisco
story.
Chronicle. It was this week. And that's one of many that have happened lately. There was one in here in New Jersey.
It's happened here in DC as well.
Exactly. Where the Black homeowner had to use the white person as cover. And so when I created her, that's what I was thinking about, not these specific cases, but I've known in many instances where I clearly knew that people would be more interested if the vehicle of justice was white, be a white lawyer, white homeowner. We've seen it. We've all seen it. And we all know what that is.
Right. And the recent example of a missing female is Gabby.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where there's no situation or scenario imaginable where a Black female would get that kind of
never
exposure.
Just reading your book made me think of that case, because while they were going on and on about Gabby, there was a young Black man missing at the same time.
Yeah,
and
Jelani
nobody
Day.
said anything about him. He was found dead, and he still barely made a blip in the news.
Yeah. His mother was a guest on my show, Carmen, who's amazing. And think about the fact that she had to go on and literally begged the news to cover her son's disappearance, and he was lying in a morgue, unidentified.
Mhm.
Unidentified. And dozens of national and local cameras were devoted to Gabby Petito's death, which should have been covered. No one is saying that. We know that. That goes without saying, actually. But why? Right? Well, we know why. And I was on Trevor Noah's show, which was phenomenal. And many others have asked me why. And I'm like, you're asking me why when we all know why.
The
So
answer.
we all know very clearly the answer.
Right.
And so April was introduced for that very reason. And I look at, like I said, you know, and Rhonda brought up the current news cycle with Gabby Petito, but the current news cycle of a white family posing as the homeowner, and the home goes up $500,000 more. Think about it. All of you who are on the homeowners right now, how crazy is that you could walk out of the home you built, the walls you painted, you know, the lawn you mow, the plumbing you do, the dishes, the cabinet, and all it took was a white face.
Mm-hmm.
So as a Black homeowner, if you're selling your house, you could literally hire some white people to just show
Well,
the
that, I
home
mean, but right,
and
isn't
increase
that crazy?
the price.
That seems to be the moral of the story.
Yeah,
And that is what April sees. Well, that's April doesn't see that in herself. She doesn't recognize it. But Jordan recognizes what she can bring to Pamela's case that
right,
even Jordan can't as a Black reporter.
right. One of the
Monique has a
viewers has a question.
Okay.
Deborah Thompson, who's watching online,
Ever.
asks, how
Ever,
many
ever.
books do you plan to write?
I think 6. So my birthday was September 16th. This book came out
Birthday.
October 26th, and our season started September 6th. So I've had this weird 666, which is technically supposed to be not a good number, but I figure I'll make it good for me. So I'm thinking 6. As I said, we've got 2. I hope to finish 2. My goal is to finish the second one February, March. I'm hoping with the publisher to do more in-person book clubs. I told them I'm like, I will not finish this unless you can guarantee me that we can see people in person, because that was a part of my dream with this stepping out of my comfort zone, is that, you know, I just love to sit in the room with a couple of book clubs and talk in person safely and have that moment. That's a dream of mine.
Okay, let's see.
I have a
We have any
question
more-
for you. Yes.
Okay.
Charlene Martin, I'm tickled to be involved in this, and I enjoyed the book. I really did. I knew your writing was going to be smooth because of you being a journalist, but the plot and the character development was a pure joy. My question, I'm looking at the second novel. What's up with Jordan on her love life? Is she going to be with this trainer? Is he trustworthy?
No.
Give me some insight. Okay.
No, well, listen, I want him to be. Well, so Jordan has a new love interest coming her way. He's a musician. Yeah, he's a musician that she
Okay.
meets in a way that is very interesting. But yeah, I mean, we learn a lot about in this next book what it's like for, you know, you always hear about basketball groupies and football groupies. Like,
Yeah.
there are men who come after women who are on TV, even in the news. And so she is starting to become a little more well known. And so she is entertaining some of it. And also, though, conflicted about, as I said, there's a big wedding in this new book. And we all have been to weddings before where if you're in an unhappy wedding, a wedding can make yours happy. And if you're single, you want to join in. You're like, oh, this is a wedding. The bride walks down. So she's at a wedding with her friends, and it evokes and prompts an interesting reaction from her. But she is, though, at that road where if she does the relationship, what happens to the work? Do you lose that opportunity because she is one of one? And do you lose that opportunity, as women so often fear, because it is real that you can lose these opportunities? So she's looking at what she wants. And yeah, but I do want to explore her personal life a lot more. And we're getting a lot more juicy. And I already told my mother she can't read some of it because I want her to be, I want her to be a fully developed woman, right? I want to hear about her intimate life and recognize again that as a Black woman, she's allowed that. She's allowed intimacy, and she's allowed relationships and the complexities of it. Like, again, I go back to Waiting to Exhale, which was a big inspiration for me, because for me, it was the first time reading adult women in real life circumstances in a modern voice, whether it be divorce or singledom or not wanting to be bothered, like that real richness of what the journey is like to find love, or find with Thomas a love for the night.
Okay, we have two people
you.
with their hands raised, and Monique is the first one with the question, and Mama Tony is the second.
Hey, Mama Tony. Hi, Monique.
Hello. Thank you for allowing us the privilege of your book, and the question and answer period is invaluable. As an aspiring writer, what would you give as advice to someone who is just getting the courage to put that pen to paper, and tell their story? What encouragement or words of advice would you give to the next you?
Oh, wow. I mean, what you're afraid of isn't real. It's not real. It is. I love Game of Thrones, right? The dragons aren't real. And we create these things in our heads, and we think that they're safety nets, and they're actually not. Whatever you are afraid of, I say this, and please understand where my sister, as you know, is murdered. I do a crime show. I'm getting ready to read scripts in a minute for my daytime show. I always tell my team, nobody died. Nobody died. No one will die from you trying, but your dream can if you don't try. So what is the worst that can happen? Somebody said they didn't like the book. Okay. What? You didn't die. You write another one. You'll get better at that one. Nobody died. Nobody died. And I think that that's important, because I do believe, and I've done it myself, you imagine the consequences of living your life, as the consequences are far worse in your mind than they are in reality. We use this phrase, living our best lives, yet we don't. So go live your best life, write it. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, some papers, all right. But it's nothing. It's nothing you can't handle or do.
Right. Thank you. Succinct and simple. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, Mama Tony.
Hey, Mama Tony. I love that name. Mama Tony.
As an avid reader and reviewer, I was like, am I really going to like this book? This is the debut novel. Yes, I said those things to myself. But as I haven't finished it, but these first 12 chapters have been riveting.
Aww.
They have been very riveting. And one of the paragraphs on page 5 that just really touched me was, you said, other news media has referred to the latest victim as a prostitute. I didn't have the heart to describe her as that. When speaking to her mother, she was somebody's child. And so many times when we watch the news, we don't get that from reporters. We don't get that they think of that person as a person, as somebody's sister, brother, or whatever. And to me, that was a very poignant statement. I am going to finish it, and I will definitely do a review.
Oh, well, first of all, you're gonna make me cry. And Gwen knows I cry. That is so Gosh, that means the world to me that you highlighted that portion of the book, because honestly, that's happened so many times, whether Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, you hear every morsel of negativity about who they or who someone said they were
Mhm.
versus how other people are covered. For years, when I got in this business in the early 90s, before the phrase human trafficker or a trafficking victim was used, that's how they used to talk on the news. Oh, police say she was a prostitute. They literally used to say that on TV. Can you believe that? I mean, they would
Yeah.
describe people as that.
It gives us a
And
reason to think that they deserved whatever it is.
They
that-
deserve
that
it,
whatever
yeah.
they had it coming, they had it coming. And so that line was born from that, or that story. But also, I live in Harlem, and I right after I had Moses, my son, I remember seeing this homeless man right after when you get off 135th on the Harlem River Drive. And he was standing there with a sign. It was the first time, Mama Tony, in my life that I saw someone, I said, he was someone's child once. He came home with a family, with a mom, with somebody who thought that he was going to go on and do whatever it was, but they loved him. He was someone's baby. And there he is standing on the side of the street with a sign asking to be fed. When his mom brought him home with her body feeding him, that was her child. And so I had this really emotional awakening that I'd never had. Obviously, I've shown empathy and I felt, oh my God, that person's homeless. What all those things we all feel. But it was the first time I had that moment where I was like, that was someone's baby. This man in front of me
Mhm.
was someone's baby brought home that day. And that's
so
where
glad
that came
somebody
from.
else who thinks that way, because when I see homeless people, I always wonder their story, how
Yeah,
they
yeah,
got to that point. I picture them as a baby and
yeah,
having a home and
yeah.
what.
And I had never done that. I knew this was someone I was supposed to feel sympathy, empathy for. I felt that. But after I had my son was the first time I was like, my God, somebody took this man home as a baby.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's where that came from, where I said, someone's baby. We all make mistakes, but for the grace of God, there go I. And we all have circumstances and judgments and decisions we make that could have ended our lives in many, many ways and put us in very different rooms in the chat room that we're in right now. And that's where that came from.
Well, we're at the end of our time.
Yeah.
I did want to, because Mama Tony talked about something she highlighted. I highlighted something on page 5. And I normally don't highlight in my books because I like to keep them pristine. But this one, I wanted to remember it. And it's a one sentence. And it says, labels give people a reason not to care when aired out on the news. And
That's
that's
in
just
that
what we
same
were discussing.
paragraph, Gwen.
Oh, okay.
That's,
So
yeah,
we-
that's the end of that
the
same
same
paragraph.
thing.
Mhm.
It struck me right on page 5. So we're going to be giving away 3 autographed copies of the book. So
Oh.
now the way this works, the first person who answers correctly, and Rhonda, I'll look on and the way we'll have to do it is, Rhonda, you look online on the online chat for people watching. And if you have the answer, you'll have to put it in the chat box on the Zoom for the people on the Zoom. That way you're not trying to go online and do it too. And then that way, the first one who answers correctly gets a book and we mail it to you. And we'll ask you to DM your address. Rhonda she's the watcher of who does it first. So, okay, first question. Name the historic Chicago community where the early scenes in the book occur. No, it's not Bronzeville. So I don't know. Brenda Younger said Bronxville. Did anybody online get it before just now?
Nobody's gotten it on Facebook yet.
Okay, so Brenda Younger, she's in the Kush City Book Club in Houston, in the book club that I'm in. So congratulations, Brenda, you get their book.
Okay.
So
Jay Garrett said Evanston. I'm guessing he was wrong.
yeah, it's Bronzeville.
Bronzeville. Go
Bronzeville.
Brenda, H down.
Okay. So next question. What was Jordan's cameraman's first name? Her regular one, the one that not the substitute. The okay, somebody I think Shirley Martin did it first. She said Scott. Yeah. Shirley Martin.
Yep, Shirley.
Yay.
Shirley Martin, you win. So what you're gonna do is direct message on the National Black Book Festival Facebook page. Just DM, say I won the book, and we'll have the records, and then give us your snail mail address. So the last question, everybody should know the answer, and it is, because Tamron said it during some of her comments, but whoever does it first gets the book. And it's, what's the name of the 15-year-old girl who was murdered in As the Wicked Watch?
Macy.
Well, you have to type it. You have to type it, and it has to be spelled correctly. So I will make that as a, okay. Nobody has done the correct spelling yet. It's two answers, but the spelling is wrong.
Okay.
Still, okay, Brenda Younger, you can't win 2 books.
Stephanie Burnham spelled it correctly.
Okay, all right, because the ones in the chat were all misspelled until, well, wait a minute.
Well, I don't know.
Wait a minute. Mabel Tyler did it too at 901. I didn't see hers. They scrolled up too fast.
Okay, and I think Mabel Tyler was actually first.
Okay, all right.
Hey, Mabel Tyler.
Yeah, because the other ones were later. All right, well, send us your mailing address in the direct message, and you'll get your autographed copy of the book. Tamron, thank you so much for spending an hour with us for our book club kickback. And we are very excited about your first project and the success. And we're looking forward to reading all the other stories that Jordan Manning is in, and whatever else you write. So it was very, very good. A page turner. And I'm going to leave a review too. So
thank you for the reviews. Thank you to
congratulations. And I'm coming to see the show next month, Tamron. I'm coming in January.
Make sure they let me know the date. I would love to have any of you who would love to come in. I'm just super inspired by the fact that at this day and age, you still meet, you still have these conversations about books, about community and togetherness. My teacher in high school, a woman named Ernestine Rose, who was an author, but she was my English teacher. She provided me a path of love for Ntozake Shange, Nikki Giovanni, and all of these writers that clearly I will never be as illustrious or talented as, but they were beacons in my home and in my adult life. So I've always appreciated book clubs. I tell you, there are very few things I would redo about this experience. The only thing that I wish, that all of us, I'm sure, wish that we could be in person. So I look forward to attending some of your book clubs in person. I'm not kidding you. It is on my bucket list of things to do. I just want to sit and smile and read and talk and dissect the characters and the storylines together. So I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the encouragement. And my only prayer is that I get a chance to meet you in person on book 2.
Well, I have to just throw this question in. I know we're at the end, but there are people asking how they can get an autographed copy if they didn't win.
Well, we'll figure it out. Gwen, I'll call you. I'll have people call you. Know people who know people, and I got books on that. I'll make it happen. I mean, that's easy. We'll figure that out. So, Gwen, I'll coordinate with Aaron and my team, and then we'll make whatever you've been so good to me. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you. Your encouragement and your words have been phenomenal. So you are a part of my TAM fam and my heart circle. So it's done. Just let me know whatever I need to do, Gwen.
Okay, we'll get it
Okay.
done, and
All right.
we'll hopefully have an update on it next week for next week's show.
Done. All right. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay, and we're gonna
Wonderful
sign
book.
off. We're gonna
Okay.
sign off for tonight. And so all the book club members who joined us, thank you so much for participating in the book club kickback. And we're excited about just this whole effort that we're doing. Before we say goodnight, I do want to let you all know who our guests are for next week. And next week, we have 2 bookstore owners in different places in the country that are going to be on. And we have Dewana Brockington. She's with the Black Ink Charleston Book Festival, and that's coming up in January. So she's going to talk about her event. T. Wendy Williams is the 3-time novelist. She went a long time without having written anything, and now she's back with her 3rd novel. Nichelle Lawrence is the owner of the Socialite Society bookstore in Lansing, Michigan. And Aisha Malone is the owner of the Rose Cafe bookstore in Chicago. So bookstores are opening back up, new ones, and they have different models. So we want to make sure that they get support and the people know about them and they can spread the word with their friends that live in those cities. So that's what we have for next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to Black Authors Matter TV. And again, thank you to all the book clubs who participated. We'll let you know about our next one. It'll probably be in February or March, but we'll let you know when it comes and you'll get a notification. So until next week, I'm signing off. I'm Gwen Richardson saying good night.
Good
And
night.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
We'll see you next week.